I think Gabriel had a question before he left.
Oh, can you read it for me or find it?
Sure.
Thank
He
you.
said you mentioned, how do you know when to stop a design because it's good enough or because it won't work? You mentioned knowing that a design will or won't work in the first 10 minutes, but what is your thought process about it? Is this same thought process applied to paintings in terms of knowing when to stop?
I think for me, it's just a matter of just like I can just tell. Um, Usually because around that time, I'm like, oh man, I have to like, I don't feel good about this painting at all, and I feel like I'm just gonna have to keep making changes to this. So I usually make a choice, which is either stop the painting and just start completely over, or make dramatic changes to the painting already that I already began. And what usually goes into that is just like maybe I was trying something out. I experimented with a shape or form that I normally don't, and it didn't pull through. So then I try again. And so it's not nothing. It's not like a checks or balances type of thing where I'm like, oh, you're gonna check this box or that box. It's just like my subconscious is driving a lot of the time, and then every so often I consciously pay attention to what's being drawn. And then when that conscious thought is being there, like for instance, like right now, I'm like, oh, I got it. I can see what I'm doing so far, you know. But if I start to see anything with it that I don't like, then I'll have that objective point of view. And that's why like flipping the canvas is pretty important to me too. I flip it pretty often because it allows me to see these mistakes much sooner. But yeah, it's nothing like profound or anything. It's usually just like, is that cool? Yeah, I think that's cool. You know?
I have a question about blending. Like, what do you do if you kind of have issues with blending? Is there like a secret to being able to blend better?
I remember you had that question before, I think, previously, right?
That,
And
okay.
and so and I told you I was going to answer it. And so the way that the secret juice to blending is just being able to push the pen pressure with a lot of control and picking the right values and blending them together. So for instance, um, like I can get a good gradation just from my brush strokes. You see that?
Yeah.
And most people just can't do that. Okay, it's and it's like what I was saying earlier, right? I told you that even if I told you how I go about it, if you tried it, like go ahead and try it, and you'll find out right away that it's not so simple and not so easy. You understand? And
Yep.
so whenever you see me paint and you're like, man, he blends so well, I'm not doing anything other than just having really good pen control. And that just takes time, you know? And I don't think it takes like hundreds of years or anything crazy. It just takes time. It could take several months if you've made that your focus, you know? But I also
Okay.
like to use blending tools like the smudge tool, but it only expedites what I can already do freehand. You understand?
Yeah.
And
But
so
what if it, sorry, what if it goes out of focus though? Like, I don't know. Do you ever get that? Like how,
I used to, but that's what I'm saying. I just don't do that anymore. I just paint it without. I paint like if you look back at this thing, like I am painting relatively softly, and then I push relatively hard. So it starts off, and so then if I want harder edges, I just paint harder edges. You know?
Mm.
and then I just continuously do that. See, the problem is with people who start out is that they only have on or off. You know, it's either super soft or super hard. There's no in between. That's usually the issue that I see with novices. Like they'll either paint like the whole painting with like an airbrush and then just become super messy, right? And they don't even
Yeah.
change the size of the brush, and then they're just constantly making something really muddy. You get it? And then the same
Yeah.
issue happens with people who paint with um, like the hard brush, but uh, they don't have any gradation, so they're just constantly, so they're going muddy in a different direction. So the difference between you and I is that I can control the gradation of that from soft to hard or hard to soft, you know? And if you know this about yourself, then you have to start practicing uh, around it. And the tools to practice around it is just to paint things using one or two brushes and try to get things to be in focus and get things to be out of focus, or basically control it. Like try to be able to paint things with confidence, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, I have a hard edge here. So how do I go about fixing that edge? Well, I can just blend it in by painting it in, right? It's now blended in. Or I can use my smudge tool. Oops. But then it's out of focus, so then I paint it in again. But now it's too sharp, so I blend it in again. You know, it's just a constant back and forth, you see?
Okay.
And so like I paint the shape right here. I know this is going to be mostly in shadow, so I just leave it in shadow. And then I paint values that will gradate downwards to show the turning of this underbelly. You see that?
Yeah.
And it's like I told you, it's like it's one of those things like I can tell you exactly how I go about doing it, but it's like watching an NBA player do three-pointers. It's not useful to you at all. Okay? Like it's I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. It's useful, but it's nothing that you will get from immediate observation. Make sense?
Yeah.
And
Just
so
practice.
yeah, and so what I'm trying to make a very strong point of is like to start practicing being better with, like, if it's something that you feel like, oh man, it's just so hard, you're right. Okay? It is hard. So keep practicing.
Right.
And I just paint often too, so I only get better at it. Right? I just get even more and more better at my process. See, like right now, I have a very good understanding of how to achieve texture and form with very minimal effort. And see, what I do is I use my ability to gradate to find values that I use then to blend or to demonstrate turning a form. And I recognize that that's not very easy to do. And so how did I get really good at it? Like I said, just lots and lots of practice. The kinds of things that I did practice is I looked at masters like Sargent, Leyendecker, Rockwell, these mother effers, because they really understand. Some old school artists, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Caravaggio. These guys get it. So I just looked at them. The process in which I paint is not unique either. It's chiaroscuro. It's painting with light and dark as your main tools. Right, light shapes versus dark shapes. And I pretty much do that for everything from my shadows to my design. Does it make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, let me kind of make a point, a larger point, to kind of the mentality that comes with the kinds of questions that you're asking. Not to put you on the spot or anything, but it's a Western thing. Okay, meaning that hang on, take a break while I talk about this. Meaning that it's a new Western phenomenon. This idea of like, I want results tomorrow, you know, and there's the fitness industry that really makes money off of this. I'm not sure where you coming from, where you live.
I actually come from Thailand, but I'm
That's
in
fine.
the UK.
Okay, so you understand it. There's like fitness. I'm sure there's gyms and stuff in the UK. Not like they have it here in the States. We have like gyms every other block, pretty much, right? Like every 2 to 3 miles is like a gym, especially in the more larger cities. Okay, and there's this huge wave of like, you know, P90X type videos that happened. I think there's still more. I just haven't been out. I've been out of the loop. I think the latest craze is CrossFit, and CrossFit justifiably works really well because it does one thing very, very, very well. I'll explain that in just a second. Why, and how that actually correlates to art. So with this idea of like, you know, 6-pack abs in 6 weeks type of thing. But the reality is that if you just eat right and work out often, then you'll stay in shape. It's really that simple. And even the training could just be walking. Like you could just walk for half an hour to an hour or even 90 minutes every day. And you just eat right, like eat lots of vegetables, right? You just try to stay away from foods that have high saturated fat and high cholesterol. Uh, you'll live a really long and healthy life, right? Like that's not news. That's been known for quite a while. But like, why is everyone like, well, you know, why is everybody trying to train out of it? Well, it's because, you know, we have a lot of bad habits, especially here in America. You know, people are sitting more, for instance, while they work. People aren't going outside or being as active as they were. It's just lots of different things. The kinds of foods that we eat now are much worse, and we have it in abundance, specifically first world countries, right? And like when you go to school and all this stuff, everything is just like, you got to do it right away. You got to do it right away. And here's kind of the problem with the fitness industry specifically. If we go into that for a second, so there's a place called LA Fitness, right? And if everybody decided to go to LA Fitness, which is about 10,000 people, they wouldn't fit because the building can only fit 300 to 400 people at any given time. And the reason why they can have 10,000 people subscribe to that one local gym and never worry about 10,000 people showing up is because most people, they will do something where it's like immediate, like they'll like New Year's rolled around, right? So they usually have high gym membership. That's just how it works. So everyone goes in, right? Say this year I'm going to get in shape, and they work out really hard, really fast for the first few weeks or month maybe, and they start dropping off because it's too aggressive, too hard, at, too much stuff too quickly, right? And people drop off. That's how P90X works. It's like, hey, you know, if you don't get the results that you're looking for after 30 days, you know, full refund. But they have the confidence that you're the kind of person that's not going to ask for a refund. It's going to be very few people, you know? And a lot of it has to do with like if you work out for the first 2 weeks and you start to slow down, you're like, oh man, I feel really tired. I don't want to do this anymore. You start looking inwards. You start saying to yourself, it's not the program, it's me. I'm the one that's the failure, not the program. You hear what I'm getting at? And what I'm trying to say is this mentality is true for lots of different things. People want to go to school for like 2 or 3 years, uh, and the college promises this idea of a degree and that you'll have a job at the end of it, right?
Yep.
But it's just not true. The only way that it will be true will actually have nothing to necessarily do with the school. It would have everything to do with you, whether you make your portfolio worth looking at by the end of the class or at the end of the school or in the middle, like I did. I dropped out halfway through because I had actually a portfolio that got me jobs. I didn't need a degree. I still don't need one. You understand?
Mhm.
And it's this idea of like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. And then what people do is some people graduate and then they don't get the job and then they just feel like they're a complete failure. Again, they don't blame the system necessarily. And some people do. Some people blame the system and then they still quit. But I'm trying to say is no, this is a new phenomenon. Uh, Back in the day, people understood things took time. There's a reason why there's words like an apprenticeship. You know, like what is it to be apprentice? Like I'm your guys'
Yeah.
mentors, and you guys are my apprentices. That's how it works, right? And I enable this mentorship in a boot camp because it's not so much that I'm saying at the end of the boot camp you guys will get a job. I'm saying this is a kick in the butt to get you to do the things you need to do for the rest of your career, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And so here's my advice is that if you look back in a time where people had to train to get their skills, they actually would live with the person. Like let's say we lived back in the days where that was true. Like all of you guys would live in my house, right? And you guys would all be doing paintings for me or with me, and we would be doing freelance together. Do you understand?
Mhm.
And I would be teaching you tools of the trade, and we'd be doing that for years, for at least 6 to 7 years. And I would also pay you, okay,
Mm.
as you were learning. And then by the time but at the same time, that's because there's a lot of work to give out. Makes sense? Anyway,
Yeah.
and then after the end of the 6 to 7 years, you don't graduate. You just become a journeyman, meaning that you now go out and start working on your own. Okay? And then after you become a journeyman, you do that for a few years, for another like 5 to 6 years, I think. And then you become a master of your own. So this is about 14 years in the making. Okay? And then when you're a master, that means you have your own studio and you bring on more people that you train yourself and you pass along the legacy. Do you get what I'm getting at?
Yeah,
And
I get
so
it. Every
yeah,
time.
yeah, everything takes time is what I'm trying to get at. Like this whole idea of hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up is devastating to your career is what I'm trying to get at. You will get those jobs, you will get those careers, but you might get a job that you didn't want because you were just trying to hurry up and get a job in the first place. Make sense? Like this happens frequently. Like 80% of the people that I know had this happen to them. Okay, like a high percentage of people are working. Even right now, like they take my class and they're working because they're not entirely fulfilled creatively. How's that possible? They got their job in the art community. How does that? It's because they did what other people told them to do. They weren't listening to what they wanted to do. They didn't focus in on the things that they wanted to strengthen. And let me say something like if you get a job that you didn't necessarily like, if you want to just make it just so you can get started and start making money, there's nothing wrong with that either. But the problem is that I try to make people evolve past is if you have these issues, right? Like with
Mhm.
your career, it's because you might have were too much of in a hurry. And then you're in a position which is actually more sad because what ends up happening is people then have less time because now they're working. You understand me?
Yeah.
And they're creatively drained because all day they're drawing or making something that perhaps is taking a lot of their creative juice from them, you know?
Mhm.
And then when they do that, they go home and they don't want to draw anymore. They don't want to work on personal stuff. They just kind of want to relax. And then they go into this vicious cycle of being always upset about their work and the kind of stuff that they're doing now, wishing they could do more, right?
Yeah.
And building a portfolio that has nothing to do with what they really wanted because they just keep building, because they keep getting really good at that one thing. Because when you do something a lot, what happens? You get good at it, right? So if you get good at graphic design, or if you do graphic design all the day, every day, all day, but you just, I wanted to just get a job, you'll get really good at graphic design, and then you'll just have it in your portfolio, and you will just continuously and perpetually never be able to get that portfolio upgraded because you're constantly just adding more graphic design in your portfolio. That's like all your portfolio is. See, even Vlad just said, like she just mentioned, like that's her. So, you should talk to her. She can probably give you even better insight than I can.
Yeah, I guess like my situation is different. It's more like I'm forced to, like I realized I guess a bit too late in my university education that I wasn't really, I don't know, because I'm studying animation. A lot of what people want to do, like or end up doing, is more Disney, Pixar, that kind of style, and I was never really into it, but I tried to, do a different style, and I just realized it just wasn't working for me. And I don't know, it
Wait,
just made me, I
so
don't
wait,
know.
how's your situation different?
Mm, I mean, like, I guess it's not very different.
It's like exactly what I described.
I
You're like,
don't know,
I
I guess,
described that people go to places where they don't want to, or they don't realize this is what they do it because other people told them to, or like they were indirectly told, and they never truly paid attention to what they want, right?
yeah,
And that's, even if you think your situation is unique, I'm going to tell you right now that it's not. Trust me. There's someone out there that has it just as bad or has it exactly like you or even worse. Okay? That's going to almost always be true for almost every single person. You know? And so you have to respect that because it humbles you. It makes you start to focus in on what really matters. Okay? And so what I'm trying to say is to you is like the kinds of questions that you're asking, the kinds of uh, misguidance that you have is something that I see come from people that go to a university that holds more than a few hundred people uh, in each department. Is that true?
yeah, it's true. We're kind of like machined into it,
Yeah.
really.
So think about like just think about it logically. Just take a moment and just think about logically why this happens. Imagine that you're just pumping in thousands and thousands of students into one school, a funnel, and they only have about one class a week for a few hours with a teacher that needs to be easily replaceable in case stuff.
Mm,
How can you get the best of education if that's the system that you're in? Imagine that everybody that went to school, let's say the hundreds of people that your classmates are with you, all graduate. How is it possible for all 100 of you guys to get jobs in the industry local to you?
probably highly unlikely.
Yeah, just start thinking about it. Like if you start thinking about that just from your one school, you start to realize the kind of absurdity of it. And now if you just think about it, let's broaden that. What about the communities or the schools that are just nearby? Don't they have students that are likely trying to get the same kind of jobs, right? Like you're not the only school, right?
Yeah,
So you take the hundreds and you now add thousands of people. And I'm not talking about internationally yet. I'm just talking about local to your community, right?
mm,
People that are probably just an hour away. Like an hour away is not far. People could drive to their work an hour every day. People do it all the time, you know?
but just looking at Vlada's comment, yeah, basically I'm in the same situation. 90% of my work at uni has totally been like, oh my God, it's,
Yeah.
I just don't feel, I don't know what to do because
Well, I'm
I think,
telling you what to do. That's what I'm trying to explain. Like
right,
I'm trying to tell you, just be an average student or a half-ass student, but a badass artist. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, because
Yeah.
regardless of whether you graduate or not, if your artwork is amazing, no one's going to ask you what school you went to or if you graduated or not. You know, people, there's another conundrum people say is like, you know, the jobs are always saying like, hey, you have to have 5 years of experience before you get a job. Well, how do I do that if I don't even get a job? And
Yep.
I say to you, then get a job by being good. And they're like, but I don't have experience. Oh yeah? So let me ask you then. Let me ask you, let's say you're hiring people to work on a game, and it's a game that takes place in like cool architectural environments. Would you hire this artist that you see in front of you?
Yeah.
Well, he didn't have 5 years of experience when he made this. This was in the middle of his school year when he made this, my buddy Danny. So
That's
do
really
you
good.
see the clarity that I see?
Yeah. He knows what he wants to do. He wants to be an environmental artist, and
Or
that's
just
what
a
he's
designer
doing.
and vehicle designer, right? Right? That's what he
Yeah.
is. And more importantly is that we can see he is good. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I'm trying to make a point of. Is that like people are so confused with how do I get a job? This is how you get a job. There's nothing to be confused about. You just got to be really good and have artwork that is continuously and consistently good. Like, look at all this stuff. This is the stuff that he did recently for Titanfall 2, I believe.
Jesus.
You know how I know that he got a job right after school? Because we worked at Sony together. He got picked up right after he graduated. They were foaming at the mouth, Sony. They couldn't wait for him to graduate. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he went to Art Center, but it's irrelevant, is what I'm trying to get at. I mean, it's not entirely relevant because they have a great system there to teach people how to be good, for sure. But it's just resources, because I know plenty of people who went to Art Center that aren't very good. Okay? Yeah, the point I'm trying to make is very clear. And if there's any disillusion to what it takes, you should know that there is no reason to be so disillusioned. You know? Just go to ArtStation and ask yourself who you'd hire on any given game. You know? And things will start to be much more clear to you. And then when you look at your portfolio stuff, then ask yourself, does my stuff match up to the quality of the best in the industry? And if the answer is no, which is most likely true,
Yeah.
then just start working on making that untrue, you know? And I had work that was abysmal, that was garbage. So I know what it's like to not have work that's good enough. In fact, I don't know anybody that like to start off like I meet somebody at like a workshop and they're just like I'm talking about like, yeah, you know, it took me a while to get a job. And what about you? How did it work for you trying to get into the industry? And no one's ever like, yeah, dude, you know, yesterday I just woke up, applied for an art position at Blizzard. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, so you've just been building a portfolio for years or something like that? And like, no, I mean, like, I just drew a picture, just mailed it to Blizzard, and they just hired me. I was like, well, but you've been like painting for a while, right? No, I've never drawn my whole life, not even as a kid. I just decided to start drawing that day, and I sent it to Blizzard. We'll see how it works. I don't know anybody that's like that. That's what I'm trying to get at. Like, I know no one who just start drawing and then all of a sudden they just kick some ass. I've met thousands and thousands of artists, amazing artists, and not a single one has a story where it was easy. Okay? Not a single one. Remember how I said earlier that there's a reason why I found out why I'm an exceptional person, and I told you what it was, right? I told you it was like because when I had faced something that was really difficult, I just kept doing it regardless because I wanted to learn. Remember that?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to tell you that's the only difference between me and novices or people who don't make it. That's literally the only difference. Okay? Is that when they decide to stop, I just keep going. And that's it. And I'm trying to tell you, that's actually very easy to do because it's easy to understand. It's easy to work hard. What's hard is just to get started. Make sense? Like,
Yep.
just doing it is the hard part. Like, just getting the momentum to start at all. And then what's harder after that is just to continue that momentum, okay? But doing it, like the actual doing it, yes, it feels frustrating and you feel like sick in your stomach a lot whenever you're doing it, sure. But if you say to yourself, that doesn't matter because as long as I do this every single day for years, I will be an exceptional artist. Guaranteed. And that's a promise that I can keep. Like if you do, there's no way that you can convince me that if you were to spend 4 or 5 hours every day, or even 3 to 4 hours every day for 5 years, painting, designing, learning, and focusing on one genre of a thing, that you're going to stay bad at it. That is ludicrous. And I can prove it to you. I can prove it to you right now with you. Do you believe that the work that you do now is better than the work that you did 5 years ago?
Yep.
Case in point. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I found that universities do and colleges and all in general, not all, but a lot of them, is they just pump out workers, right? That's why they make most people try to get into 3D and in the most basic workload. That is definitely needed, but they're not future-proofing you at all because a lot of the stuff is going to start being automated, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I highly encourage you to just, if you're going to do something, at least do what you want to do. There's a great story that my friend told me. I'm not sure if this is true or not. I have to look into it. But I like to believe that it's absolutely true, which is there's this guy who as a kid had a fascination for earthworms. And he's like, dude, I
Mm-hmm.
love earthworms. Earthworms are dope. And he would just always collect earthworms and have them in his house. And he did that for most of his childhood. And, you know, when people started asking him what he wanted to do for a living, he said, you know, I want to be an earthworm scientist, or whatever that may be. Right? I want to be the one that people come to talk about earthworms. And guess what? This
He made it.
this person ended up becoming the world-renowned scientist around earthworms. And what I love about this idea, whether it's true or not, and it's true for most. There's examples all over the place of these different types of things, like toothpick sculptures is one of my favorite ones to use too. People who make these amazing sculptures out of toothpicks. Okay, there's always a thing. But my point is what I love about that story that my friend told me about is that it's demonstrating that it seems such a bizarre career path, and this might not seem like you could make a really decent living from it, but it didn't matter, and this person ended up making a decent living from it anyway. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully you're getting the larger picture here, which is that he didn't care that there might not have been a career. He was going to do it regardless because he's so fascinated with these little critters, and he wanted to build around a career around that. And so you know, getting to kind of the moral of the story that I'm trying to really kind of compound into you and to the others is that the universities and like whenever I see these patterns of questions, it's usually from university students, and then also it's something that I want you to kind of start to delete from your memory. This idea that this is what you have to do to make it. Now you can. There's plenty of examples of people that do different and bizarre things, and that's all they design or that's all they draw. you know? And you can do the same, man. You can totally do absolutely the same. And that's why I made it very clear to all of you guys, like, you focus in on the things that you guys would like to get really good at. Not whether it's easy or not. Focus in on what you truly want to get really good at. Because once you get good at it and you start to have a portfolio that reflects that amazingness, you'll start getting jobs doing it. There's a reason why I don't post on my ArtStation anything other than the kind of stuff that you see me painting right now. Like, I'm a big fan of Pixar. I'm a big fan of certain video games and stuff like that, but I don't want to work on them.
Yeah.
You know, like, I love Pixar movies. Pixar movies are some of my favorites, right? But
Music.
yeah, but I don't have a portfolio that will ever get me a job there. You know, like, unless they decide to get real morbid all of a sudden. So, you know, we decided to take a shift in our direction of the company and we want to make monster movies. And I'm like, oh, great. Then bring me along. I want to go with you guys. You know, let me make another point. I love the game Uncharted 4. It's one of my favorite video games. Or Uncharted, the whole Uncharted series. Greatest games I've ever played. If Naughty Dog was to approach me for a job offer, I'd probably decline. And it's because I don't want to draw khakis. You know? Because the game is contemporary. I don't want to draw sweatshirts with a V, button V neck. You know? It's not exciting for me.
Yeah.
Fallout. Hate that game. Hate this franchise. I think it's boring. I don't hate it. It's just I don't think it's fun. But if they were to call me and say, we're working on Fallout 17 and we want you to design the mutants, I'd be like, hell yes. You know? And so that's something that you should respect. Like, is that something you have in your portfolio? And so to give you some advice in terms of when I was going into school, I just got like C's and D's in my classes. I just did the bare minimum. And I was lucky because I had some teachers who were like totally cool with that. Like, I had one teacher, his name was Tommy, and he was a 3D instructor. And during the class, I was telling him, like, I just want to do concept art. I just want to paint. I don't want to do any of this 3D stuff. And he was like, that's fine. He's like, you totally, you can totally just paint. Like, just on the midterms, just turn something in, and on finals, turn something in. And I'll just grade you. But as long as I see you painting and stuff in my class, you know, and working, I'll give you a passing grade. It was really nice of him. Because then all I did was paint in his class. You know, he'd give lectures, and I'll just paint. And as he was going around each desk, checking on what people were doing, he came to my desk and he saw I was painting a character or something. You know, I wasn't just watching YouTube videos or something like that. He recognized that I was truly trying to become a concept artist. So he respected that and allowed me. And then every midterm and final, I would turn in like a really shitty 3D model, right? But ironically, the people who were not doing that, the people that were focused on just doing the homework, they also turned in shitty models. So it's kind of weird. And he just started, like, even this guy who's not even trying is doing better than half the class. So he gave me C's in that class, right? But I didn't care about the grades. All I cared about was having character concept art portfolio pieces. Because I knew very early that that was the case. When I went to school, I was 23 years old. I already worked. I already know what it's like to work for a living, you know? So when I decided to pick a career, I was a lot more serious than some of my classmates who were like just 19 coming right out of high school. In fact, I forget who I was talking to about this. I feel like people who are right out of high school, instead of going straight to college, they should work for a living for like a few years. And I mean like a job. Like, I don't mean like just like a assistant manager or like an assistant to someone in like a baker, something like that. I'm talking about like working, like getting your hands in there, you know? Because then if you want to continue that career path, you can go ahead. But if you don't, you can see the alternative. And it gives you a wider perspective because I was a plumber right before I went to college. So you can imagine I had a pretty good perspective of what it was like to do a literal shitty job. you know?
Mhm.
So hope that helps you out, okay? And so in terms of how to get better at blending and all that kind of stuff, or how to get better at painting, of course I can give you advice, tips in here and there. And like I've already kind of gave you some, like you should practice just painting strokes, just like blending things often. Just try to paint spheres and cubes and cones. If you can't paint a sphere or a cone or a cube, you have no chance of painting like a really complicated character, right? Start with small things and just keep working, work your way up. Eat your art vegetables, homie.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't be disgruntled about this misguidance of your career path that might have happened to you. We all been there, including myself. Or some of us have been there in some level. Let me tell you one story, and I'll take another question. Of the easiest, the most easiest success story that I heard, okay? Because you know how I said there was, even all the ones I've heard was always, there was hard, but which one was the easiest? And I'm going to tell you guys the most, like, intense one, okay? So we'll start with the easiest one, where this guy, basically, he went to school right out of high school. He went to college, art college, to become a concept artist or illustrator, and he really wanted to. And he was already painting and drawing for years, way before he even started going to the university. So he already had a good, like, head start, right? He spent learning a few, like 5 or 6 years before, just painting and drawing. And this is during high school. And then when he went to college, he was still like really young, like 19-ish. And he went there for about a year. And then they opened up a program to do internships for different studios. And one of the studios was Riot Games. And so he went and did the internship. He immediately understood that everything he was learning from his school was worthless, because he was like trying his damnedest to keep up with the workload, the quality, etc. They thought he did a good job though, and so, but they said, keep at it, maybe there's a future for you. And so then he goes back to school. He basically ignores all his classes and just focuses on making an amazing illustration portfolio so he can go work at Riot, right? Or at least get the internship again. He basically decided that he wanted to work at Riot. He did that, and then eventually he got that opportunity to apply for the internship again. So he applied for the internship again. The people at Riot recognized who he was and the work that he did, and they said, wow, you've improved a lot in a year. Like, would you just like a job? And he said, yes. And so then he got the job. So even at the easiest level that I've heard, the easiest story that I've heard, was like one of the easiest ones out there. He had to still put in 2 years of schooling and intense education that he put onto himself a year after he experienced Riot. So he still had to put a year in, you know? And that one's the easiest story. Now let's talk about the hardest one that I've heard. That is like intense. So this artist basically was homeless. He was an orphan. His parents, pretty much his real parents abandoned him, and then his foster parents abandoned him. And when he was an adult, and he was now living on the streets. Luckily for him, he made a choice to not be a drug addict. That's important. But he didn't have a home to live in. He lived on the streets for years, I think it was. And he basically sold paintings that he did. He was an artist, or he had an affinity for art. So he drew and painted stuff, and he sold it on the streets. That's how he was able to make money, to just feed himself and every so often take a shower. One time he had a bread. Him and some other homeless person were hanging out, and he had some bread, and he was trying to share some bread with his homeless friend. Homeless friend pulled out a knife and stabbed him in the arm and took the bread. Like, this person's homeless, like straight out homeless. Not like, oh, my parents kicked me out kind of thing. No, like orphan to homeless. The only thing that's missing, he wasn't a drug addict. He didn't spend his money on drugs. He spent his money on food and equipment to paint and draw more, to sell. One day somebody walks by, sees one of his paintings, thinks it's amazing. I'm like, this is pretty good. Like, do you mind like trying out for an art test for our company? Because we were looking for an environment artist. And he said, yes, I would love to do that. And so the guy gave him the art test. He said, I'll have it ready tomorrow. Just come by tomorrow. I'll have it done. Guy comes back tomorrow, grabs it. It's like, awesome, thanks. And then the guy comes back and tells him that he's got the job. He's like, you got the job. I want to bring you in right away. And this person, this artist is ecstatic. Gets the job, walks in. The first day he walks in, he goes straight to one of the producers and says, can I have my first month's pay, please? And, the producer's just kind of like, what the, on your first day, you're already asking for your first month pay, And so the producer is obviously curious. He's like, why do you need it so fast? And the artist said to him, well, I didn't tell you guys before, but like, I'm actually homeless. I don't have a place to stay or live. And I want to get a place to stay tonight and get some food and take a shower and stuff like that. And the producer was like, holy shit, of course. And now this person that I'm talking about is one of the most renowned artists in the industry and an art director at Ubisoft. So remember how I said that you guys are not unique in your problems, and either someone else has it just as bad as you or worse? Hopefully you guys might see that you might have it not as bad as that person. You have to understand, if that person did not walk by that one day and saw him with his paintings, he might not be a concept artist. He might not be an art director. He might be dead. Do you understand? He told me that story at one of these events I went to. And this person, if you don't know, I'll tell you who it is. It's Christian Sickbrush. Good old Sickbrush. Go ahead and check out his work. This is some of his older stuff. I'm not sure if he has newer stuff around. Yeah, he told me that we were hanging out and we were drinking and we were talking about like careers and like we were talking about like students and how they don't get it. Like we were just like, why don't people we just do simple stuff, just work, just keep painting every day. And he's like, yeah, right. Like people don't understand how easy they got it. And then he started telling me his story, and I was like, what? I was like, do you mind if I share that story with other people? And he's like, yeah, man, go for it. It's going to help people work better. And I'm like, I think it will. I think people will be inspired by that story. And I even told him, I gave him some advice. I was like, you gave a really good talk about art direction and stuff at like the workshop. I was like, but I think your talks would be more powerful if you just told that story. Like that story is like freaking good. It's like the kind of stuff that they make movies about, It's like my story is pretty cool too. Like I have a good one, but like it's nowhere near as good as yours. It's like I thought I had a pretty hard time, but no, you nailed it. Like you win. And there's several others that are also homeless people. Justin Kuro from Massive Black, he was also homeless. He like lived in the woods, and now he's like the owner of Massive Black. Some artists did it backwards. Like I think Android Jones lives in the woods on purpose. I don't know what that guy's up to. But you guys understand? Hopefully that helps inspire you to kind of like to not be so distraught about your own personal situation. And even if you were, it can always be better. Because even as bad as it was for Christian Sickbrush, there's even better examples of people out there who have no idea that this is even a career. And their struggle is just trying to live. For instance, I've been paying attention to politics a lot. I just found out that this week U.S. bombed a school in Syria, I believed, and killed 200 civilians because perhaps there was some terrorists. This is a fucking joke. I was physically angry. My ears were getting hot. I was like, can't believe this shit's happening. There's a boat that sunk with just refugees that was shot down or shot, and then it sunk and had just like tons of people on there. They just all died. It could be worse, right? So just try to be happy with the circumstances that you were given. Not to say to undermine you guys' own struggles. I'm just saying that whenever you start thinking about the global sense of struggle, you might realize you got access to internet. You're being taught by an instructor like me. You were able to afford the class. You guys have. I generally assume that most of you guys have it not too bad. You know, I had every so often a few students that I can tell like they're really struggling, but they are usually highly inspired. There was one student who didn't speak English at all. Saw that the opportunity that my class was available. He spent, my class was going to be available 2 months in the future, so he was saving, or he signed up for a class that's 2 months in the future. And then for those 2 months, he taught himself English so he can learn from me even better. And I was like, what in the world? And, you know, and some of my American neighbors who are just like, have this complaint of they're taking our jobs, this idea of the others. Y'all are taking our jobs. And I say, they're not taking them. They just earned them. Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought that maybe you're not as good as you might think you are? You're not entitled to shit. You have to earn it. Everybody earns their jobs. It's not like some of these jobs that are given to some really great artists are not like they're, oh, you know, we're only giving them because they're being charged less so they can, or they can charge them less so they can get more money out of it. No, like some of the best in the industry are foreign artists and they get paid more because they're so damn good. In fact, outsourcing is really cheap, but there's caveats to that. And I've experienced it too. They're not taking your jobs. It's just like nobody wants to do this simple jobs. So outsourcing it is easier. And then the most complicated, more well-paid jobs are reserved for those people who work really hard. That's why I'm a big advocate against like the formal educational system for most nations because it's kind of backwards. It's like old and ancient. We need to revise it. But at the same time, I don't think it should be privatized. I think it needs to be controlled and regulated in a much more progressive way. So they don't have students like you guys ended up in universities that teach you how to do nothing really and become average workers and have no real substance in terms of your guys' actual portfolio. And then you get into the cycle of, do you think that it's your fault? But it's not. Not entirely. Any other questions? I'll take a few more.
I have a question.
Go for it, buddy.
Yeah. Well, I work between many things in the industry, like between character design, environment design, and I was teaching a lot for I have students for, and that gave me an opportunity to work as an art director for many projects. And I started to feel a bit confusing about what I am doing, like jumping between all of the stuff. Do you think it's healthy for an artist to work between all of those things?
I think it's fine. What I want you to pay more attention to, I'm going to sit down again, just talk for a moment. One thing that I want you to pay attention to is what makes you the happiest. Like think back, like when was it that you truly were enjoying? And this is one of those things where looking for your vocation, and for those of you who are not sure what the term truly means, vocation just means doing something that makes you money, right? Like it's your kind of like your career, but it's not like a job. It's like it's what you love to do, and you just happen to make money from it as well. Like that's kind of the way I see vocation. So I'm starting to use that word more, right? Because career is like a very static thing. Because you can have a career in anything, right, and hate it. But a vocation in that regards means that no, it's something that you actually love, and you make money from it. So what could that be that is in your world? Like, and that's only something that you can answer. I can't necessarily answer that. That's why I always ask you guys that golden ticket question, you know? Because that golden ticket question is trying to cut through all the bullshit and try to have you answer not from what you've heard other people tell you what you should say, but what you really want to do. Like you want to be the earthworm scientist type of thing, you know? And you just got to think back, like, okay, what is it that truly, like, if you look about all the things that you've done, like, what did you enjoy the most? And I'll give you an example with myself, okay? So when I was starting as a student, trying to become a character concept artist, right? I was working with my friends. We would talk a lot. We would give each other advice, and I was constantly creating stuff. And I was constantly learning stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And I loved make new things, and I loved talking about how to do it, right? And I didn't necessarily pay attention to that entirely. I just knew, that's all I was doing, and that was like some of the best time that I ever had in my whole career was when I was trying to have a career. And that, about 8 years later, I've went from working for small studios to super large studios to movies and all that stuff, and I had all that glamour. I even made money to the point where I was making $4,500 a week on some projects, right? And none of that made me any happier than when I was just hanging out with my friends and we were just making stuff. Okay? And so that's when I realized that's my vocation. And that's like not 8 years ago, that's about like more like 7 years ago. Or I'm sorry, 7 years later, which was about 3 years ago for currently. Okay? So 3 years ago, that's when I realized that is what I truly love. It actually has nothing to do with art even. Like it's not even art that I love. It's the idea of learning something that I truly have a passion for, or something that I'm really interested in, learning it and truly learning it and trying to become great at it, right?
Yeah.
And then teaching it to others. That's what I love. That's why you see my Gumroad videos do so well and why people love them. You can tell that I like teaching this shit, you know? And because I love it and because it's easier for me to do, it becomes just good by the nature of that, right? By a product of my own passion, the product becomes beloved by others. Because if I didn't love it, if it was just kind of like dry, then I wouldn't have built such a reputation for being a really well-known teacher. Okay? And then the next step is just to make stuff. So I'm part-time art directing on this project. So I do like making stuff. I like to be a part of like something, even if I'm just an employee. Like I did like working on like Blizzard stuff because I liked making something. There's something nice about that. But that wasn't the heart of what I really loved. I could have been the programmer and it would have still had the same kind of passion, if that made sense. Okay? And so then I decided that really what I love, like my real vocation is in this order, creating things and becoming proficient at these things that I create, and then educating others on that. That is just continuously kind of like that's going to be my fuel for the rest of my life. I really believe that. You know?
Yeah, I got it.
And that's a hard, it took me 7 years really to kind of figure that out. You know, I had to like get those big jobs and make that much money to realize I wasn't getting any happier. In fact, the more money and the more recognition I was getting, the less happier I was becoming. Because I was working so much. I was working like 10, 12 hours a day to maintain the lifestyle that I was trying to keep. And then in the last 3 years, I've been working towards removing that, removing working so hard, right? Removing myself from being famous for just drawing a lot of things. Like I just wanted to be, I'd rather not be famous. I'd rather just be um, well known as a person that just gives insight and education, right? That's pretty much what I want to do. That's all I really care about. Right now, I'm making a game. Again, I made a game before. It's called Don't Wake Baby. It's really garbage, but like I've said many times, if you want to get good at something, you have to do it a lot. So I've already built a plan, which is I'm going to just make tons of games. You know, same model that I've made for myself as an artist. I'm going to apply it to games, and I am assured that I will be a tremendous success in 10 years from now too. You know, I have no doubt as long as I stay consistent and constant.
Mhm.
Just like I always teach you guys, right? Like this is not me preaching you guys some preschool stuff that only preschoolers should be doing, right? No, this is what makes professionals, okay? This is like a professional skill, which is the ability to continuously practice your trade, okay? That's what makes you a professional. I'm not giving you guys student tips. I'm giving you guys pro tips. And so, you know, when it comes to that question though, like, is it detrimental? No, I think everything is useful. Like, let me give you a good example. Like someone asks me this question, which is, you know, what do you think you would tell the past version of yourself? Like, is there something that you would tell the version of yourself in the past? You know, like what advice would you give to yourself? And I would say nothing. And they were shocked. They're like, what? What do you mean nothing? You didn't tell yourself anything? And I was like, because you have to understand that because I went through the things I went through is why I'm the person I am today.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
It's like if I go back and told my 16-year-old version of myself, you need to start painting because you're going to be so good at it. Maybe I would tried it and I would have see that I was bad at it and just give up. Versus when I was 23 years old and needed a real career and I saw that the parameters were around that I could potentially become an artist, I had to understand what life was like and how hard it was. I had to have some struggles, you know, to make me take it more seriously. I know that that's contributing to who I am today. Like, you should definitely understand that looking to the past is an important trait. Like, you know, there's always like there's all these different sayings. Like one saying is like, you know, don't live in the past, and I agree with that because the idea is like don't live in the past, but you should also learn from your past and don't forget the past, especially the more important, more valuable things that might have happened to you. You know, there's some things that are worth forgetting. I understand that. Not everything is worth keeping around. Okay, but I would even argue some of those things are very important, and you just got to spin the perspective of why you have that memory in the first place. You know, so you can move on with your life and grow from the things that you've done in the past, the mistakes you might have made. And so, the reason why I even bring this up is to kind of put you in a state of mind of like, perhaps you may have done all these different things, and you might feel like there might have been some things you wish you would have done differently. And everybody feels that way, but I'm trying to tell you. But see, because you did all those things, you asked the question that you asked me today, and I'm giving you the advice that I'm giving you today that will potentially propel you to where you want to be in the future. Okay? So hopefully you understand the broader insight, right? Like, yeah, man, like it could, I know people who do many different things, right? Like they have skills in 17 different trades and they're really good at every single one. But at the same time, they're like 50 years old or 40 years old, you know? So they have time to practice each one of these things. And that's why they're so immensely good. Like, I've been dabbling with 3D for years, not like full throttle, but just for years. And I knew that this shit would be automated eventually. A lot of the stuff. I was like, there's no way that this will still be something that people need to do. Okay?
Yeah.
And it's already starting to become true. And I was even having kind of a debate with my friend about this. And he's like, "Yo, well, we still have to like worry about optimization and all that stuff." And I'm like, "Nah, I don't think so, man." I was like, "You're not future-proofing yourself." I was like, I mean, like, think about it. 10 years ago, like, what was going on? What was going on 10 years ago? Let's look at it.
Nothing.
No, there's cool stuff going on. Like, but what was going on? Let's find out. So 10 years ago is 2007. 2007 games list. Let's see what came out. I don't know on the top of my head. Oh, BioShock, the first BioShock?
Wow.
Okay, let's look at the first BioShock. What a
That was
game.
10 years ago. Wow.
What a good game, too.
Good to mention.
Yeah, see, so BioShock, right? And what system was out that? What was that, like the PlayStation 2, I think? What? Unreal Tournament 3? Yo, PlayStation 3. So it was just one generation ago. Wow. That's insane. That is crazy. So let's find out. 10 years ago. Specs of PS3 versus PS4. That's what I wanted to get into. Where is okay, let's see what we got. This is not useful to me. I wanted more of like a chart. Yeah, see you later, Natalie. Appreciate you. Oh, here you go. Thank you. This is what I wanted to see. All right. So let's just focus on the most obvious. Oh my God. So this, according to this, it says it was, there's no way this is true. It wasn't that low, was it?
No.
Oh wait, this is like, okay. Oh yeah, what the? So it is almost 4 times faster. 4 times better, right? So if you look at like Uncharted 1 release, when was that? That was definitely a little further, I think, right? Yeah, 2007 looks like. Yeah, that was a 2007. So if you look at Uncharted 1, Drake's Fortune, let's see if I can find a shot of, yeah, this is good. This is really good because we can see the real contrast. It's intense. It's going to be intense. Okay. Like intense. Uncharted, Drake's Fortune, 4. Okay. So this is 10 years ago. So, I mean, my cell phone, I think, is more powerful or almost is almost more powerful, or it's getting there. No, it's probably not. But it's getting close to the PlayStation 3. Give that a few more years. Like, I don't even think like 10 years. Like, give it 2 or 3 more years. Our cell phones will probably just be as powerful as the PlayStation 3. It's definitely beyond the PlayStation 2, my cell phone. And so my point to him was that automation, there's going to be a lot of things automated. You can do motion capture with your uh, like an Xbox Connect. You know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So like if you just have a rigged character and you just map that rigged character to your mocap, you'll be able to get motion capture data just from your living room. Um, and that technology is only going to get easier and easier, and it's an exponential thing. So instead of 10 years for us to see some dramatic changes, so right now 2017, so in 2022, trust that a lot of this type of automation will be around, and people will be able to make enormous amounts of content with small groups of people. I promise you.
Mm.
And so I told him that too. I was like, look, like, we got to be smart about this. We got to put all our talents into the things that are hard to learn, hard to automate: storytelling, game design, um, uh, speed. Right, that's something that's like being fast with the tools that are available always. Artistic direction, etc. Right, these are things that will still be very challenging regardless of the new technology. But yeah, I mean, we have till 2040, I believe, until we're the singularity, until we're one giant hive mind. Just flying around the universe.
Imagine.
Yeah, until we're flying around the universe as eating suns. Yeah, you laugh, but I mean,
Yeah, who knows?
we'll laugh about it when we're all a hive mind in 2100 flying around the universe. It's like, remember that one time that we were taking class, you're learning from me, and now you know everything that I know? And I was making a joke with my friend too the other day when we were at sketch group, and I was like, he was talking about like the afterlife, and I was like, well, we'll never really know, because as long as I don't get in any kind of accident, I'm gonna live forever. And he just started laughing at me. He's like, well, we're not gonna live forever. It's like, it's not possible. I was like, the way that I see it is simple. It's that if I can stay healthy for the next 30 years, there will be technology and medicine that will allow me to live another 30 years. That will allow me to extend my life another 10 to 20 years maybe, right? So if I live another 10 to 20 years, there'll be technology that will allow me to expand my life another 10 to 30 years or maybe, right?
Yeah.
And if I live long enough, if I live another 20 years, like if I live to be 100 years old in this time, dude, I don't think I will ever die. I can't imagine that will happen. And we were just joking about that, and he was just laughing, and I was like, dude, like we already have like, we're already outliving in a capacity that we're not even supposed to. We're living into our hundreds more and more. It's becoming more like, and 100 years, in the past was a big deal for sure, but 100 years now with modern technology is just going to be exponentially higher, right? And he's like, okay, I bet you $1 million, right? And I was like, all right. And then literally the next day, I just saw an article about NAD Plus. Have you guys heard about this?
No.
So basically, there's a scientist who's been really trying to reverse aging. That's his goal, his life goal. That's his vocation. Okay. And they just tested NAD Plus, which is this compound, I believe, that you could just put it in drinking water. It's not invasive. And they tested it on rats, and they found that a rat that lived 2 years had genetics that resembled a rat that lived only for 3 months. So basically, they reversed the age. Like the rat was still old and still grew and aged, right? But the aging slowed down dramatically. Okay? And it basically renewed their cells. Does that mean that we're going to all look like super young children? I, I don't think so. What he was trying to imply was that we would have less wrinkles. That kind of stuff would just start to go away because our cells will renew. But we would still look like older people for sure, right? Um, but the aging process in general will just probably just be more natural, meaning that by the time we get to our hundreds or like our 80s to hundreds, instead of being super sick and dying at that age, you know, we'll just be healthy, right? And have young, like have a young mind and a young body, right? Even though we'll still kind of look old, like we'll still look kind of like 70 or 80 potentially, but we would have a sharp mind, you know, like as if we were still like 20 years old. Makes sense? And that's awesome. That's really awesome. And they just discovered it, and they just got approved for human trials. So in the next 2 years, we might be able to just buy these pills that you put into your drinking water, and then you don't age. Oh man, this future is so intense. And let alone like prosthetics, like you can start replacing your limbs with like robotic limbs. That'd be dope. So anyway, I'm not sure how we got into this topic, so let's just stop. I'll take on one more question. But hopefully that gave you some good insight about the whole being a little confused. Is it detrimental to your growth? I don't think so. I think everything is important. Everything's worth exploring, right? But just start figuring out what it is that you truly want to be doing. And that's true for everybody in this class, not just for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
What brush do you use?
Circle brush. The circle brush, bro.
The super brush.
Super brush. Yeah, you think you're really funny. Any other questions?
Just kidding, man.
I know you are. I used to have a joke about that. Anyway, go ahead, sorry.
Do you think I can get a job?
Like right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think your work's good. It's not a matter if you can. I think everybody in the class actually is capable of working like right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much a matter of if
Yeah.
you can. It's a matter of how. And there's only two variables
Uh-huh.
that control that. One, you have to have quality work, which I think you do actually. After looking at it, I think you have some really good work.
Thanks.
But second, people have to know who you are. If nobody knows who the hell you are, then how they're ever going to hire you?
Yeah.
You know, this
I'm
is why.
preparing making homepage.
Yeah, and I'm going to demonstrate this visually, and then I'm going to end the class.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll explain to you
Mm-hmm.
using visual cues.
Okay.
So imagine that this is your portfolio,
Mm-hmm.
and you only have one place where people can find it, is your website. And imagine that it's a road, and this is like basically a dirt road. Like it's like a secret dirt road that goes off of the highway. You know, so you have to even know that it exists to even go there, right? Like you would have to actually hear from somebody that it exists. So your opportunities are very slim. If we had to put a percentage on this, I think it's like 1%. Right? There's definitely a chance that someone will stumble upon your work, but it's very unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But now let's say you have an art station. You know, you increase your percentage a little bit more, like 5%, let's say. And let's say you post often. This will increase you more dramatically. Maybe it's like 20%. Okay, like, and I'm just talking about these two platforms. Because ArtStation has a large audience of people who employ people.
Mm-hmm.
So you've increased your chances, but it's not a guarantee, right? And this percentage is based off of if you have good work. Like first of all, you do have even good work. If you don't, this percentages will be lower regardless. But that doesn't mean they will be zero. It just means it will be a lot lower. But then let's say you start posting on Facebook, like Twitter, Instagram. You go to workshops, so you meet people and you share your portfolio with them there. Like people pass it business cards. You do streams. You do talks. You go to more events. you have more social presence in different places, you do videos, etc., etc., etc. And then you just keep increasing this percentage until it starts becoming really high, like
Yeah.
80% or 90% chances of getting a job.
Yeah, right.
And posting constantly is something that I always tell people to do because it works. Let me demonstrate. So if you go to ArtStation, you'll see a lot of really good work from all kinds of people. Correct?
Yeah.
So let's take a,
ArtStation, yeah,
so let's take a look at Wing.
has a, okay.
Oh, see, I was like, I wonder why he's popped it. Like he got one of his paintings on the front page. It's because he posted new images. Because these are new. These two are here specifically. But if he posted more often, he would have a higher turn rate, but he doesn't yet. 11,000 followers. That's a lot. And I think it's on the merit of just his quality of the work. So he has good work, and he shared it relatively often. Not often, but too often. But he shared it enough where people were able to find him. And he's clearly better than me. I think he's a much better artist than I am. He's like, he learns, or I learn from him by just looking at his paintings all the time. Okay? He's someone that I truly admire. And then now let's look at somebody who posts a lot. Sparth. In fact, I was kind of competing against Sparth because, what? No way. Is he beating me? No, he posted 3 new images. That's why. You son of a bitch. But look at how much he posts. And people will say, well, he's been in the industry for a long time and whatever. No, Wang Wei has been in the industry just as long. It's just, he posts so much. There's so much work there. There's like hundreds of images. So he has almost 19,500. So I was like, you know what? I proved it to one of my students, and I think Eurus was in that class when I was talking about it. I was watch. I'm gonna post every single day because he was like 200.
Yeah.
He was 200 more than me at the time, and then I posted, and he became 100 more than me. And as a watch, I'm gonna post every day. I'm gonna pass him, and we did it in the class, and I passed him in the class. And guess what? I'm still ahead of him. But I just realized he posted more, so I need to post more again. Okay. And I also have hundreds of images. And some of them are garbage. What is this about? Why did I think that this was cool? You know? But it doesn't matter. It's just like I just post often, man. I just post so often. And I've been posting every single day ever since I talked to my students about that. And I said, look, I'll show you. If you go to my Instagram, same thing. I post not every single day, but at least every other day. You know? And that constant flow of posting explodes my recognition. And if you look at my Gumroad sales, which is something that I don't make any tutorials too often. Every so often I do, but the point is that it's a slow and steady increase in sales. And it's because I've been posting more and more, and I've been tagging my website on each post, so people have more opportunities to buy my tutorials or find my mentorships or whatever. So this applies to not just getting a job, it also helps apply to making money off of your products that you might want to sell. Like I had a friend who was trying to sell his games, and he was trying to see, he's asking me, so how do you get so many fans? And again, it's this whole idea of how do you get them so fast? Like, how do I get them fast? And I'm trying to tell people, I didn't get them fast. Okay? Like, when I started posting every day, I think I had like 18,700. Right? Was that right? Euros? And that's about like that was almost like like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, now you're
And
better.
so I got 1,000 more, which is not a lot. If you think about it, right? Like, it's like 20 or 30 people a day.
Mm-hmm.
I just did that for years. And that's why I have 19,000. That's it. You get it? And it does increase. Like, when you first start out, maybe it's like 1 or 2 people a day. And then a year later, now it's like 5 to 10 people a day. And then a year later, it's like 10 to 15 people a day. And then a year later, it's 20 to 30 people a day. And then a year later, like, I'll get 50 to 60 people a day. And then a year later, it'll be 7 to 80 people a day. It grows, like, the amount of people that will start, because it's exponential, because you have so much more work out there, right?
Yeah, like
More
I have,
opportunity for people to find you.
Just from the 5 new posts from the early classes. 90 followers, like in 2 weeks,
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah, and all I did is tell you guys what I believe is 100% true, which is just constant and consistent flow of content. That's it. So are you prepared to work? Yeah, I think so. But does anybody know who you are? Nope. So you got to change that.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah,
takes
right.
time. And it takes time. Everything takes time. Don't be in such a hurry. Don't be so discouraged if you don't get a job. I had a student at one of the sketch groups talk to me, and she's really good. And she was stressing out. She's like, oh, man, they're going to ship me back to China if I don't get a job. Like, I was like, listen, like, you're really good. I was like, let's play out the worst case scenario. I was like, let's say you don't get a job before the time's up. I was like, are you going to go back to China? She's like, no, I'll live in someone's house if I have to. I was like, see, so even the worst case scenario, you have a backup plan. She's like, she just wants a job right away. And I'm trying to teach her, I'm like, listen, you're going to get that job because you're really good. I actually have no doubt about that. And you're really persistent. She keeps talking to all these people. She knows a lot of people. It's just inevitable. But I was making it very clear to her that just because she gets the job doesn't mean she's going to be happy either. So she needs to kind of focus on that. But I can tell she's got that super Asian, like, career mentality, you know? And if that's what makes her happy, then that's what makes her happy. But I was trying to kind of make it clear to her that all she needed to do was just keep talking to people, because her work is good. And then the next sketch group, she told me she got an interview from Blizzard. And I was like,
Wow.
people are so impatient. And I don't know if she got the job, though. Maybe she didn't. I'll check in with her. But it's just a matter of time and effort.
Yeah.
All right? I'll post this image today.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. With that being said, I appreciate you guys. You guys had a good class. You guys had a lot of, actually, I'm going to keep painting on this a little bit longer to make it a little nicer. I hope you guys keep working hard. Talk to each other outside of class. Community is a big deal. It's a huge deal. Talking with one another to give each other advice is really, really positive way to grow. Trust me on that. And with that being said, peace out, friends. Have a good weekend. I'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to watch more in the future. If you liked the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this content, you can go to my website, robotpencil.net, where you can find mentorships, tutorials, and a Patreon to get more exclusive content. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next videos.